So what is Native American Land Conservancy?
So what we do is we protect and preserve and acquire, we're out to acquire lands that are considered sacred to Indigenous people. And not even only here in the Coachella Valley or High Desert, it's everywhere. We have different interests pulling us different places, always on the lookout to assist in the fight for land back. Basically to protect these areas and to manage them where we can. In some cases, maybe that would even mean giving them back to the tribe, and that would be great. Sometimes, though, like this place is traditional shared use. So in order to keep everybody at peace, keep everybody happy, we're happy to step in and manage it and make sure that we can all come here and use it and get away from those terms like territory and ours, our land. We moved throughout everywhere. And yeah, we had skirmishes. There were different things going on here and there. But all in all, we were moving over everything. We had different seasons. We go up the hills, down the hills. So it's all good stuff.
It's time for 90 Miles from Needles, the Desert Protection Podcast, with your hosts, Chris Clark and Alicia Pike.
Hello, and welcome to 90 Miles from Needles, the Desert Protection Podcast. I'm Chris. We here in the California desert were lucky this year in that we had a spectacular display of desert wildflowers as a result of a fairly wet winter. I know this is true for other parts of the desert as well. And as happens pretty much every time there's a good bloom the last few years, this bloom opened up discussion of social media, geotagging of photos, gatekeeping, who gets access to these beautiful places, who gets to be in the know about where the botanical action is. And this episode, as it turns out, is itself an exercise in gatekeeping. We spent some time talking to our friend Elizabeth Page of the Native American Land Conservancy and the group Save Our Springs, who has a thing or two to say about why gatekeeping might not be the entirely bad thing it's sometimes made out to be. We met up with Elizabeth in a place that is kind of the epicenter of gatekeeping for one California desert community. We will not specifically identify it. People that live nearby know where it is. It's a property that the Native American Land Conservancy monitors for appropriate use. It is a significant cultural site, a spring with lots of petroglyphs, and it has also been abused over the generations by the descendants of settlers. We talked with Elizabeth about that, about the flowers that we were seeing in bloom there, about what it's like to be an Indigenous person in the conservation field, both in agencies and in nonprofit organizations. And in general, we just had a really nice conversation and time hanging out. We think you will enjoy hearing what Elizabeth had to say. Before we start out, though, we are becoming a nonprofit. We have an application in to the IRS for a 501c3 status, and we are very anxious to put our new board of directors to work and to offer you the possibility of tax-exempt donations, working with your donor-advised fund, just the whole range of things that we can do with a nonprofit status. And look for more news on that in episodes to come. In the meantime, we couldn't do this without you. We have a new easy way for you to donate, either a one-time gift or a recurring donation. Pick up your phone and text the word NEEDLES to 53555. You'll get a link that allows you to donate. You can save that link and donate later, check it out, see how it works. We just want to make it as easy as possible for you. All right, let's go off to that undisclosed location and our conversation with Elizabeth Page from the Native American Land Conservancy and Save Our Springs. So who are you?
Hello, everyone. I'm Elizabeth. I'm a Desert Cahuilla person, member of the Torres Martinez Band of Cahuilla Indians. Been in Southern California my whole life, and I choose to be here for the rest of my whole life. And I'm the Education and Stewardship Program Manager for the Native American Land Conservancy. So I've worked in conservation now for about 7 years. And I came from a background in just living my life, just paycheck to paycheck, and not really getting much out of what I was doing, which was banking for a while. There's a few other little odd jobs in there. Basically just been working all my life, just like my mom, just like my grandma. I didn't grow up on the reservation. I grew up kind of on the reservation because I was in Palm Springs, but not near my particular tribe, which is more eastern Coachella Valley. But I do remember going out to the res for doings, for meetings and holidays and things like that. But I was pretty much the only Indian kid in my class, and which can always be awkward. So, yeah. And then, so while living off the reservation, my mom had to work, my grandma had to work, and so they were always working. Never really had the opportunities to go camping. Like, I didn't start camping till I was in my late 20s, and that's a little long ago now, but because everybody was always working, and I fell into that too, just because life happens. But then a few years ago, I just got to a point where I was just burning out. The whole, am I anything more? And will I ever be anything more than I was today? So I always felt this kind of need to go back onto the land, because I have these good memories of my grandma gathering like barrel cactus buds and things like that. And she wouldn't teach me the language much. She tried sometimes, and there are moments when you're little and you just don't want to hear it. And you're just a little scrappy kid who's, again, the only Indian in your class, and this kind of feels more isolation. It gives you that more of a feeling of isolation. So I was resistant to it. And then on her side too, she was told in school, like, no, you don't speak that language. But I'd always hear her get together with the older ladies out from the res, and they'd be talking. I'd always be interested, but it didn't really take hold until that point in my life where I was just like, I got to do something else.
Yep.
Like, I have to just do more, because I feel that tie. I feel that. And I'm not like that at all. I'm really pragmatic. I wanted to go into science when I was small, but so there's a line for me. I don't know. I feel it. I feel like the energy, but I also don't want to sound all new agey or something. No. Just because that's a whole other issue too.
I imagine so.
Here in the high desert, where people want to tap into an energy that they don't necessarily understand. And it's not about that. It's not about gatekeeping that either. But that's ours. That's our culture, is our humanity. So yeah, I just started taking desert ecology classes and volunteering a lot of time. At the same time, I was working too. I had 2 part-time jobs. Plus I made time to volunteer, because at that time, that was expected. I think things are really changing now, and it feels good to finally be in the position to offer these types of jobs. Our site monitors, they make a good amount for what they do, and it's great. It's a great thing to do, to be out in nature, to be taking care of it. And I think even just 7 years ago, that you wouldn't get paid. You wouldn't get paid. It would just be expected for you to volunteer your time.
Yep.
So I did do a lot of that. And through school, I got in a work study kind of program with doing avian mortality surveys. I did the Mojave Desert Land Trust's internship. Yes, I did that, and it gave me a little boost. And then, of course, I was always talking my coworkers' ears off about the desert, and come out with me, come out hiking with me, and I'll show you that the desert is not just this place that you've defined in your mind. Like, you have to look carefully and lovingly to see everything, and that's what you learn. And even just wildflower season, I know it's a big thing to be like, oh, you just can't be a friend of the desert during wildflower season, but that's a gateway drug. It's totally a gateway drug. Learn everybody's name, and then you start looking for them the next year and year after year, and then even in that you find new ones during the winter, because you get fascinated and like just drawn into their whole life cycle. You know that just because the desert is sleeping or dry and hot during the summer, it's not dead, it's not gone.
They become like friends, really?
Yeah,
I like to make specific trips to visit certain plants or colonies of lichen, or just to, like the chuckwalla, just to say, how are you doing? Are you out?
Yes, absolutely. There are definitely sites that I've been working at, I've had the opportunity to work at, and now I like regularly visit. And that kind of came along with after, I'm still technically a student, but I got a job with the Coachella Valley Conservation Commission. So their primary function, or my concern, was the CVMSHCP, the Coachella Valley Multi-Species Habitat Conservation Plan. So in that there's a tremendous amount of acreage that is dedicated to conservation that will never be developed on. So it's my job to get to know it and manage it in a way, help manage it. That was when I was a baby program assistant, which is only last year. But it was just so wonderful to be out in those spaces that I hadn't been acquainted with. So when I was on certain sites, I got that feeling again. Wait, we're here somewhere, we're here. And it was even during the field job where I found a mortar pestle stone. And this is sitting at the base of wind farms and like under turbines. So no, we were here. We're still here. And even though that we were all given these lines to live within, or to say that they're ours, not even ours, like on reservations, it's not like that. It was all still, it was part of our lifeway, this whole desert. It's not only these spaces that we're in right now, it's everywhere. I really felt that connection, and I visit these areas so frequently. And so I think during that year, I'd been talking with Dr. Bob. He was encouraging me like, hey, why don't you come over to the Native American Conservancy? Yeah, last year they had a position and it sounded amazing. So I applied and here I am. And it really did encompass everything that I wanted to do. I wanted to be on these traditional spaces. I wanted to take care of these traditional spaces. I want to continue doing what I like to do, which is making friends with every plant and animal that I see, but also sharing that with Indigenous people, for Indigenous people, and making that reconnection to these places that we don't necessarily, it's not that we don't go here anymore, but it's hard to feel welcome a lot of different spaces. But we know that we were here for a long time. So yeah, that's what I love to do. Just make that reconnection. And I'm able to do that with this particular job right now. I'm able to do some really wonderful things. And even just a few weeks ago out at Bonanza Spring.
So just by way of explanation here, Elizabeth and I make a number of references to an event at Bonanza Spring that involves some young folks and their families. What that's talking about is a Save Our Springs event at Bonanza Spring, which is threatened by the Cadiz water mining project. And at the Save Our Springs event, to which I was invited, I was glad to take part. The primary focus of the event was getting families from the Chemehuevi Reservation out to the spring to see it. Bonanza Spring is extremely important to the Chemehuevi, but because of lack of access, some of the grown-ups in the crowd, and certainly most, if not all of the young people, had not had a chance to see Bonanza Spring yet. And so when we refer to the kids clambering around the rocks at Bonanza Spring, we had a bunch of 6 and 7 and 8-year-olds out there, a couple of older kids, and it was just a spectacular experience I was privileged to take part in.
Just like, I'm not a kid person, but I love sharing with kids and just seeing them just crawl all over the place, crawl all over the desert, and knowing that that's the same thing that their ancestors did when they were little, and their ancestors before them in this cultural space that is public lands. It's inherently Indigenous.
Yeah, that was a pretty remarkable event, and I am not particularly a kid person either. Generally, I have a limit of about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And that was great.
No shade at all. It's just...
It was so cool. They were totally into it.
Yeah. It was very sweet. Have you been here recently?
It has been a few months, and I haven't gone in this way for probably 10 years.
Flowers. There's lots of flowers.
Have you seen any torts up here in the last little bit?
No torts, but the chucks are coming out strong.
Nice.
Big, chunky. The chuckwallas.
Oh, yeah. Love those guys.
So we'll probably see our site monitor, Sharon, who's amazing. She's been great. She like loves to holler at people. Like, very, get off those rocks.
Wow. That's great there's someone around though.
Yeah, we have a couple of them now, and we're still looking for one for the old woman's.
No, that sounds like a great job though, volunteer heckler. Like,
Yeah.
You just stand out in nature and surreptitiously holler at people when they start breaking the rules.
Yeah. And just
That's
a lot
how
of it is,
I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff involved, but
yeah, it can be a little annoying. Little cottontail.
Davut.
now where would these tracks come from?
Jerks.
Okay.
Yeah. They're still not on our property, but still, it sucks. Because they feel they can just come in here and do whatever they want all the time. Because
And that's really not appropriate for this area.
no, and that's what we get to. Like, my family's lived here all our lives. We can do this. We always came here. Try thousands of years ago, we've been coming here.
Yeah.
Morning. Look at him sitting up there. He's so cute.
Who's sitting up where?
Quail.
Oh.
Sitting up on top of the rock. Morning.
Wow, look at all that purple clustered
Yeah.
over there.
Got a lot of Phacelia waterfalls around here. It's Phacelia Falls.
That's lovely.
Ooh,
Love
nice.
that.
Pretty winter here.
Oh. I'm the official, I think, trail photographer for the podcast. So Chris never seems to take his phone out, so
That's a good thing.
yeah. He's in charge of recording and I'm in charge of documenting, I think. I'll take that role.
A chuckwalla crawled into the crack right above your head.
Oh,
Ooh.
so pretty.
Nice. Yeah, he's in there. You can see his tail.
I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna eat you. We're gonna make tacos. I gotta go.
He says, you can get me.
Found a nice slow mallow in there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the first bloom I've seen of the season on a mallow. All the ones by my house are just still with the buds.
Yeah. I wait eagerly for the mallows to come out.
They are one of my favorites. I adore them. We had a real big one come up after a flood, and for the 2 years that it was thriving, it was my little bee motel, and I'd visit it every night and look at the bees go into bed and watch the little petals close around them, and it just brought me so much joy.
Yeah.
So I planted one in a cage, so now I can forever look at it, not just
That was
let
one of the
nature.
first things I show to my coworkers when I used to work in. God, it seems like so many years ago, but it was like only 6 years ago. I was in banking, and I was like, "Look at this bee sleeping in a flower. Tell me you want to do this for the rest of your life."
Right. They are the definition of how to do it.
Yes. Ooh. Nice. This bee butt.
Ooh, what's that?
It's tobacco.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's very, very sweet plant. I tend not to share it with everybody though, because they'll come and they'll take.
Once they look for the white sage and don't find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I like to point at Phacelia. Oh, maybe it's over there.
We won't share that photo with the world. We'll keep that one private to us.
They can go look it up themselves.
We are completely fine with just having this be some anonymous important cultural site somewhere.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
I have no shame in being a gatekeeper to sensitive
I.
ecological data. No shame. Gatekeeper.
Gatekeeper, keeping them close.
There's a lot of hate on the internet for gatekeeping. It's like, it should be available to everyone. It's like,
You know, within reason. We have to keep the desert secret sometimes.
Enough people know about this place already.
Yeah, I just recently brought in a class from California Indian Nations College, and I love bringing them here. They tend to be small classes because it's the lab part, and some people, like, there's accessibility issues, or maybe they can't make the drive up here, but it's just like always a real treasure when I find Native people and I'm like, look, it's us.
At this point, Alicia noticed some petroglyphs that were well high up on the rock wall containing most of the rock art, a good 75 feet above the surface of the wash, and certainly higher than most people could climb, let alone reach.
So would those have been more accessible at the time they were?
Yeah, because the sand has been going up and down throughout thousands of years with the water. So while there are stories of, were our people that tall? Yes, they were. Probably not. The sand was giving them a little boost.
And we can get that tall again.
Eat your native foods, you can grow that tall.
Nice.
And what would this have been? Like a signpost or a...
Usually, yeah, they're pretty much signposts. People like to say art, different ways of saying it, but this tells a story of where you go to next. If you're traveling the desert thousands of years ago, you're making your way to the ocean or you're making your way up north, you need to know where to find water. So you'd come to places like this because your grandparents came here, or your great-great-grandparents came here. And then when you get here, you see those signposts or road maps. It's a road map.
Nice. Affirming you have found your way to the right
Yeah.
place. Keep going.
And it's obvious too, because, we have all these various water tanks throughout the desert, and to know where they are is just, you got to survive.
Yeah.
So that story is passed down from generation to generation where you can find the water across all of our tribes too. So traditional use areas, shared traditional use areas. That's what these are. It's a really beautiful space. And the thing is, these are everywhere. These are literally spread out all over the park, public lands, and everywhere. So I've seen these same kind of coordinating signals like 120 miles away, down going toward Blythe, and then also about 30 miles that way, going up toward Pioneer Town. They're everywhere, and they all tell the same story. They're all telling the same roadmap. So I think we should probably go up. There's this little ridge where you can go up and look over everything.
Yeah.
It's quiet.
All right.
Morning,
Nice.
little baby. Oh, so pretty. Hold on.
These perfect little gardens couldn't be curated any better. It's just absolute perfection.
Oh, and a buddy.
Oh, chunk. Look at that chunk.
Someone else who says chunk.
My dog's name is Chunk.
I love to call my dog Atlas Chonker. And he's my little chunklets.
Oh, it's Chunk. I say that too to her. I call her like, she's always hot. I'm like, my hot chocolate. That's my hot little chunky gal.
And when I'm out with Chris and he shows me some big old desert plant, I'm like, oh, that's a chonker. Oh, is this a poppy?
Pale yellow suncup.
Pale yellow suncup.
There's poppies around here, and there's a lot of poppies around here.
Poppies and lilies, I just love them. I love them all, really. Don't get me wrong. Wow, the visual intensity of the blue
I know.
of all of these.
It almost hurts your eyes sometimes.
Yeah. Intense.
Morning.
Now, are these white people named Canterbury bells? Is that what?
Yeah, Canterbury bells.
And
or
then what did you
bluebells.
call them earlier?
Phacelia.
The Phacelia?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just- I don't know our name for
I like to
them.
know all the names possible that are out there.
Yeah. Oh, buckwheat. Oh, these guys are flowering. Mirabilis.
Mirabilis.
Wishbone plant.
What a beauty. I don't think I've ever smelled you before. Come here.
Do they smell? Do they have a...
Very light. Very light, and I don't know, it almost has a perfume element, but it's so faint.
There's some whispering bells over there. Those are pretty.
I gotta
Over
go
here
check
too.
those out.
Ah!
Oh, they're so pretty.
Yeah, they're very drippy. Like those little flower faces. They're like, bloop.
gosh, so delicate. Not much of a smell there. Little bit of a BO undertone.
Oh, I love these.
Oh,
These
nice.
are Stargilia.
The beaver tail getting ready to show off.
Oh yeah, I've seen a few of those popping off. Probably right up here. Hello? Okay, nobody's gonna come out and bite me. Puppies.
There we go.
We have arrived at just the right spot, apparently. I just love you. You're so beautiful. Yeah. So nice to see you.
Nice view of Nolina Peak.
Yeah.
I think that should be part of the foundational training when you're being raised from kindergarten through high school, those formative years of training. They need to teach us how to take care of ourselves,
Yes.
first of all. I feel like I didn't learn. And okay, they'll teach you how to do math and balance your checkbook. Just do the bare basics of physical exercise. That's all I felt like I got.
And even then, it's not enough. When we were growing up too, we didn't really learn about any of this stuff. And invasive species management and all the issues that we face in conservation, because there are so many. People just have this image of tree huggers and environmentalists and granola eaters, and it's just, no, it's a very complex system full of everybody. Everybody's different. Everybody's coming at it from a different angle because of what they feel is important, like recreation. That's not only climbers, that's also the OHVers and different things like that. And you have to be able to sit in a room with everybody and coordinate at the same time. Stuff that's special to me is directly impacted by that recreation. It can be a challenge. It's challenging.
But it's one of those challenges that I feel like if it's met with love, that sounds super cheesy, but when you're bringing that energy and attitude to these difficult conversations, it tends to disarm the really hard edge that you might be coming up against. And if you can somehow lead by example and that side can calm the hell down, and you've calmed the hell down, we can talk about your issues, we can talk about my issues, we can straddle compromise and conversation without my way or the highway, it's all or nothing, silver bullets, and that super black and white language in conservation, like soil erosion versus invasive species control. It's just, we've got to be able to sit down and talk about this without our heart rates going through the roof. And I find that to be the most challenging part of conversating with people who aren't in the conservation world, just random people I meet out there, and we start talking around the fire pit or whatever. And I always feel very pressed to take a stance and to say, this is concrete, this is absolute, why we need to do this. And when I don't do that, I have found that people are like, so you're saying you don't know? And you just think that this is what we should do? They get really disarmed. They're like, that's cool, man. You're coming at this with your... I just feel like there's so much like, we have to do it, and this energy can be so malproductive.
Yeah.
It's hard to battle. Every time I go to a community meeting, I'm battling it, yelling at the developers, the earth is not a commodity. It's like, calm down, Alice. Yeah, gosh.
Yeah, I think I come at it a little differently. It's just very nuanced and complex, that whole history too. So I don't know, I feel like I would dig in more, probably, because like I'm more of the mind that I know the way, I feel the way because I am the desert.
Yeah.
Like everything that I'm made up of is from here in this region. This is the place I know. This is the place I'm from. And that it's been that way for generations. I don't know. Yeah, that can be a little hard-headed, but
I feel like it comes from both ways, though.
Alive, so
people want to shut you down because of what is happening now. I feel like that hard line of, but that's not real anymore. No, she's very real. This is very real.
yeah.
And we can't ignore the past. Just like these people who come in here and say, my family's been doing this for 3 generations.
Yeah.
Where's that entitlement going to go as far as cooperation? And I feel like the disrespect that humans show each other when trying to be right is the weirdest thing.
I think
I'm not saying you're being disrespectful.
No, of course. We just talking. It really just comes down to education. And what you said before is what I firmly believe too, is everybody needs to be brought up with this kind of stuff. And that's how we were brought up way back in the day. That's how my grandmother taught me about plants and different things that we do with plants. Why isn't that part of the conversation? Why hasn't that been part of the conservation conversation all this time? Because people are so disconnected from their surroundings. Doesn't even make sense to them. They just see desert and it's dead and dry and brown, and they don't like that. The ideal is green, lush trees, and then we have all the issues that stem from the forest being overgrown. Like, we can't cut down the trees. Okay, they're gonna burn because everybody's competing for the resources, the sun, and you have all these dried out trees that can't make it. And that's when we get fires. It's like all of that stuff, we encompassed all the learning generations and generations ago. And then it's only now that we're being called on. So, I don't know, it's a little, again, complex, frustrating at times. Because another issue is, like, a lot of us have been far removed from that stuff, so we don't know sometimes. And you're being shaken by organizations like, we want this knowledge, give it to us now, we need it. It's like, we don't know it anymore. Sometimes it can be like that.
Please speak on behalf of all Native peoples.
No, absolutely not. I speak for myself. No, I speak for my family and the land and how I understand it. I also run a hiking group with my good friend Sienna Thomas. We regularly host hikes for Indigenous women, and this is an Indigenous-centered group. So what we do is we just get together, talk, gossip. We just share good times on the land and getting to know different women from our area. Usually we're related in some way, which has been really wonderful because we've done a hike like out in the Santa Rosas, and one of the women came, we're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm related to so-and-so, and it's just really cool. And yeah, we get people up from Menifee, come out, way out from Riverside, they'll come out to the Coachella Valley for hiking, and yeah, it's been really great to lead, and we've got a little website coming out soon too. And it's more just for us to reconnect with ourselves and then enable the ladies and families. And we do have all-inclusive hikes too. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I will have us invite an outside person come in as a guest to share in the experience. And yeah, it's been really wonderful. You can always watch or follow along or support us on at Achaquin Hikes on Instagram, and then soon to be achaquinhikes.com.
Nice.
And it's just basically a community group, but we've toyed around with the idea of maybe we can have a tip jar, like if people want to provide $5 or $6 for gas, because it does take a lot to ask ladies to come out from different areas. That'd be great. That's one of the dreams we have for it too. It's a resource for ourselves, and to some extent the larger community, but we just want to enjoy the land comfortably. People like to think that we're at this hilt of intelligence, we're going to get things done, and it's just channeled into the wrong areas, just channeled into the same old, we're going to do what we were doing before, just more efficiently, or with maybe a little bit of maybe carbon offset or something. It doesn't work. Think your way out of this in a better way, in a way that's more informed. It's just always, we're informed, this same old going on. Oil. I saw a bumper sticker, somebody was like, I love fossil fuels. I'm like, oh my gosh. When did it become a joke that these resources are going to run out? We're existing now on a timeline where if I had kids, they would be extremely affected by climate change. Like, it's happening in this lifetime. Like, all of us alive right now are going to be facing this. We're already facing it. Even in my 44 years, I've seen the desert go from one thing to another. I remember plants and seeing a lot of different animals in areas that I don't see them anymore. And it's just so frustrating to know that people don't pay attention to that. That it's not normal. It really is not normal. And if we were intelligent, if we were We're all basking in our collective connectivity, but are we using it the right way? Are we focusing it on a new way to be, or a new old way to be? Because the indigenous ways were sustainable. We didn't, yeah, I don't know, maybe people would say, yeah, but you don't have Starbucks. We had goods, we had services, it's just a different way that was completely sustainable for thousands of years. We did it in a way, yeah, there was less people, there was less of us. But I think right now, our population is bigger, but there's room on the land for everybody. That's not an issue. That's not an issue for me, but it's the way we're using our resources. That's the issue. So it's really got me fired up, Chris. It's too fired up for a Saturday morning. So we have saveoursprings.org if you want to visit there. We are going to be doing a couple of different events in the fall just because it's warming up right now. So I'll have a couple of different events, and these are Indigenous centered. And it's very important to me and to us to be able to do this, to reconnect kiddos and families and take them out into the desert, spaces that we don't get to visit that often. That's what we're doing. We want to make that connection to fire our people up, to mobilize them, to get them to understand that this is worth the fight. That's another thing too. We're tired of fighting, and we always have to choose the battles. And we have a lot of battles that we're dealing with right now. This is important to us. It's important to me. So saveoursprings.org.
Is there a way for people to make donations there so that
Yes.
they can help these events happen while not necessarily tagging along themselves like you have let me do?
Absolutely. You're able to donate to the cause because it does take a lot of funds. We are a nonprofit organization, so we do need to provide transportation and lunch and programming for our families to make them comfortable and let them have a wonderful day before we tell them terrible news.
Which is my job. That's the terrible news is what I handle.
Exactly.
It was really interesting having to suddenly readjust what I was going to say to accommodate an audience of 7-year-olds. It's okay, I can go into the politics of the former administration and the Department of the Interior and conflict of interest, or I can talk about water and animals.
But it's really sweet because one of the kids had a little story like that, like somebody's trying to take this water away. Like they got it, they understood it. That's wonderful.
I think my favorite part of that was, and Chris is upset about that.
Chris is upset about it. No, I don't think that they got that on video. I really wanted it on video.
It was obviously really wonderful to see the light in the kids' eyes as they were running around and confronting like cliffs and being told, don't get too close to the edge and all that kind of stuff.
But no, thing is, like in planning everything, one of the things I was going to do is do a safety talk as soon as everybody gets out of the car and tell them what to do, what not to do, what we want to pay attention to, reptiles, sometimes snakes can be out. It's a very good area for the Mojave Green, which I haven't met yet. I really am looking forward to.
They're sweet.
The first thing that they do, the kids just spill out of the cars and just go wild into the desert. And I'm like, ah! It was wonderful, but also just as a volunteer coordinator, I'm like, oh, taken.
Yeah. It was really cool to see the adults were all taking collective responsibility for the kids being okay, but at the same time, that was just right at the surface. And then there was this, for those grown-ups that hadn't been there before, they had the same light.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. You don't see that as often. Kids are like so much more unguarded.
Yeah. I know there's a few different postings that I had seen from the participants, the adults, and it's really wonderful to see that they had a good time, that they had never been there, and just how beautiful the area is and what it meant to them to actually be able to go see it, and how we were going to go see it in the future, which, yes, we need to do that. It's very important to me to visit different areas, different places where, quote unquote, it's very popular to hike. Those are indigenous spaces. So my good friend and cohort, Sienna, who we run the hiking group together, one of the things she taught me was always welcome people. No matter where you are, you could be in the city and just say welcome because this is your land. So that's one of the things that we like to say. And I do mean it in my heart, welcome. And just when I say that, I just want them to realize that they are in an area that is native and that there are things that you have to do to respect it. Doesn't mean you just go climb all over everything. It doesn't mean that everything has to get geotagged on your Instagram. Not everything has to be amplified in such a way as to cause it more harm. This is how we see with the super blooms, the wildflowers. I've taken to just literally saying, here, flower, like on my posts. I won't say where I am or what the flower is, just because even that gets, my friends are botanists and scientists and everything, and that's great, but it all starts with just wonder. Here, look at this beautiful picture of this flower I found in the desert. Go learn about it.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's just fatigue. It's only 7 years that I've been in conservation.
That's a real thing, though. I think it's 7-year cycles, like relationships.
Oh, yes. This is Laria tridentata, the creosote article.
Yeah, I remember when I was first starting to get into plants, it was as a result of having a job in a nursery in DC. And I'd get out to Shenandoah National Park and I'd see roadside stand of borage just in full bloom. And I knew it was from Eurasia and I knew it was invasive and causing environmental problems, but I had never really seen it in full bloom like that. And it was just there and like psychedelic purple indigo, and it's a moment that I absolutely will not forget, and I felt really connected to the place that I was in, even though it was a parking lot with stripes painted on it with an overlook down onto some farms. But yeah, it really is a solid, like you said, gateway drug. And we were talking about that the other day over in our wildflower jaunt out there. The thing I like about the welcoming people is it seems like a really positive and creative subversion of the routine land acknowledgement thing that folks do these days. Which
Land acknowledgements are for more other people, not for us, really. I'm just speaking for myself. It's gotten to the point where, is it for real? Are you really saying this, or is this just something you're getting out of the way? Like I'm bearing on that side, so I don't think I'll ever be roped into doing one again. I know where I am.
Yep. I appreciated the gesture when it started, and I think people generally really intend to mean well with them. And at the same time, I think of sitting down to dinner in Vienna somewhere and having the host say, first off, I'd like to acknowledge that the painting on the wall there is the traditional property of the Rosenberg family. And just, okay, what do you do next?
Yeah. I think it just all comes down to, again, just teaching people how to function on the land and the space they're in. Because that's inherent to us, but doesn't seem that way to the larger community sometimes.
I have a question. I don't know if it's appropriate for the episode or whatever, or if you even will want to answer it, which you're free to not answer any question ever. All of my ancestry that I know of we're all European immigrants. And I think I'm 3rd generation here, and I'm 2nd generation born and raised in the United States. And I am born and raised in Southern California. And it's really a shitty feeling to feel like you have no home. There's no place that like my family comes from. And when I look into, okay, I've got some Russian Namolikans, they're the milk drinking religious people, and there's a few things that I can find. They're like, oh, the founders of Nantucket, they were pro women's rights, they were anti-religious, and little facets of my past have made me feel some connection to who I am and where I might belong. But it is such a shitty feeling to be so strongly feeling the earth and feeling so connected, but not feeling like I have anywhere that I truly belong. As a white person here in this land that is not mine, that I am the descendant of the invaders. Do you have any advice for how one could respectfully feel like they belong here? It's a very tough question.
Yeah. Let me think on it.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
I love you. Honesty is the best policy.
I think generally there are a lot of people that feel the same. And I would say just getting to know your environment and getting to know your ecosystem and getting to know the cultures that surround you give you a good toolbox to make your home. To feel a certain way about an area is the beginning. And if the best way to make it your home is to respect it. That's the simple truth. Doesn't mean you have to adopt our ways or adopt anybody else's ways. I think growing where you are, growing your community, and concentrating on that, teaching everyone around you about what's important, about the environment, about the cultures around them. That's the beginning. That's all we can do. And that's all we do too. All we do is become a part of where we're from. That's basically every single Indigenous person, Indigenous group on the entire planet. We just are where we're from. And that's what you have to do from scratch. You're in the same place. You're in the same place we began at.
Yeah.
So, and in the future, maybe it will be this whole amalgamation of all the different cultures, I would hope, with respect to each one, but also just one. So, I hope I gave you something.
I feel like you spoke to my journey, which is, it's heartwarming because I want to have the utmost of respect for this place that I call home. I only moved here 10 years ago, and I fell terribly in love with the desert, just all the ways, the good, the bad, and what some would call the ugly, which I don't think exists. But
I don't know, it can get pretty ugly.
death is ugly.
Have you been the king of the hammers?
Oh my gosh.
I was just referring to nature in her raw self. What we're doing up in it, yeah, that's the ugly category. I've just tried my best to honor the land because I feel like humans in general, particularly in a capitalistic society, they're just...
Everything is a resource.
Yeah.
Everything
to be taken,
has a cost.
Yeah.
And
it hurts. I don't feel that way at all. And this podcast is like a bigger way for me to, instead of just one-on-one with people that come to see me and I take them out into nature and I'm trying to flick seeds and nuggets into them to have them start learning more and getting into respecting nature instead of just, it's not just a form of entertainment. It's not just there for you to consume. It's this symbiotic relationship, and I have found peace there, but
same bro. It's like, that's what you have to start with. Yeah. Just planting those seeds and telling people, whoever will listen, you know, this is significant. Look at this flower. Look at this rock. Not rocks in my case, because I'm not a huge fan of geology. I look at rocks. Rocks are rocks. I get it. Geologists can look at a rock and tell the story of the human, not even the human, the lifespan of the earth.
Yeah.
But I'm like over here looking at chuckwallas and going, wow, chuckwallas.
I love that about how people have different, just their natural personality gives them the ability to focus on chuckwallas or rocks. Or down there in the wash where you were complimenting your monitor friend there. She just doesn't have any fear to say what she wants to say. And some personalities are like that regardless of skin color, but I know that I'm more like you, where I find it very difficult to do the, I don't know how to say this, but you can't do that.
And then like the film crew that came here last week, it was very awkward for me to do, and I'm thankful that I had three people with me who were visiting from out of the area. One Pam Kawachum and another couple from, I believe it was San Francisco area, so probably alone or something, but they were with me and we saw them coming and I was like, oh, I think they have a camera, and in the back of my mind I'm like, okay, I can do this, I can do my job. Absolutely. I had to walk up to them, a group of people, and say, hey, what are y'all doing? And trying to be how I naturally am. I'm pretty nice. But she starts crying. And I literally just told you can't film here. The crying deal, though, I didn't understand that. Hi.
No, she probably cries when she gets speeding tickets, too.
I don't know. I guess I could see that. I would cry too if I got a speeding ticket. I've never gotten a speeding ticket, knock on rock. Ow.
I am really grateful for the background music.
I know. Kachel, kachel, singing. Quail. Stargilia.
I was just going to ask. You read my mind. What a beauty with those long stalks that transition from this deep sienna red to that bright spring green at the bottom. Those stems are all that beauty.
Good job.
Gosh. What?
I'm talking to the plant. Good job.
God, you got that down. You know how to gradate from red to green, complementary colors.
One of my dreams is like a full-on survey, Kauai, the 3 different dialects, and whatever we don't have a name for, why couldn't we come up with a name?
Yeah.
Because there are names. Some of them people hold as secrets, but the thing is, like, the young folks need to be brought up with all of those names too. So we need to have a dictionary, and that's one of my goals.
Place names too.
Place names as well. See, but that's like a different, it can be sensitive too, because we lost. I won't say they're lost, because they're not lost. They're just either people can't remember them. But the whole thing is we were destroyed, and you know, those things were erased in a very targeted way.
Yep.
So it's work to get back there.
Yeah,
and it's
for
worth
sure.
it, but it's definitely worth it.
And I can imagine that if people did the work to get back there, they might not want to always share it with greater society. It's not like Denali necessarily.
Yeah. Even I hesitate to say it, like, I show different people different things when they come here. I show Indigenous folks more than what I show regular folks. But I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I feel like that's your heritage, just to pass that information on in that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Gatekeeper.
But at the same time, people can say that. People
No,
can say,
in a good way. I'm singing it to you like bird song.
As someone who lives with 2 dogs that want to kill each other, I am a big fan of gates.
Gatekeeper.
You can come up with a theme song. Gatekeeper, keeping it in, keeping you out.
I love it.
There's one by Fitz in the Tantrums. I can make your hands clap. I hear you should get your land back. I have several songs that I want to turn into nature education anthems.
Yeah.
Oh, hello.
We got a little chunk.
It's a little chunk. Maybe a chunk with his tail that is regenerating. Hold on. Because it looks, let me see.
I may just not get a chance to see him without making a ruckus.
Maybe it's a little chunk. I just mean, like, the tail seems a little short.
Yeah, I thought so too.
He's a chuckwalla.
A chunk.
Chunkwalla. Maybe had a little early battle with the bird.
The chunk one.
Birds, that's sweet meat. Get over here, sweet meat.
Yeah, when I was living over on Mount Lassen Street east of here, we had all of these iguanas all over, and you get the really tiny ones. It was clear they hatched in the last year or two, and some of them would already be missing a tail. It's just, man, life's tough. Life's tough for a vegetarian out here.
Yes.
I started like pulling the desert willow and creosote blossoms off and just hauling them up and tossing them to him. And there was at least one that, as me, would come walking towards me when it saw it. It was really cool.
Aww. Little friend.
Tried to do that with the iguanas in the new place we are in, east of 29, and then we had a family of roadrunners move in, and they cleaned out all of our lizards. They were raising a family. They're coming back now, though. We do sometimes leave the airplane noise in just to be honest about it. Like, I remember there was I think a Flickr photo group that was photos of wild nature, and you couldn't post anything that showed any evidence of human interaction or things like that. And I was like, you sure about that?
Wouldn't the photo itself qualify?
Yeah, I know.
The reflection of you in the creature's eyes.
There it is.
I've taken tens of thousands of photos, and hundreds of them I like. I think my favorite is a series up in Tuolumne Meadows in Yosemite. of this really fat, fluffy coyote in November, walking along, going up to the Tioga Pass Road, and looking both ways, and then crossing. And I thought,
Smart.
not only is there obviously a road there, but there's this behavior that the coyote wouldn't have if it wasn't for humans, of looking both ways. And it's like, that's so much more interesting than just a shot of a coyote standing there looking off into the distance.
That's my moiety, coyote. Maybe that's why I'm so silly. Trickster. No.
Works for me.
That's why I laugh so loud. That's one of my favorite things about the hiking groups. So sometimes we laugh so loud, bouncing off the canyons, but then that gives me that feeling like Native women laughing on their land. And it's like a place like this, and that happened all the time. We're in a processing site. We're in a site that has hosted so many of those women and those culture bearers and the kids. You can hear them just playing all over the rocks and hearing the ladies, get down off that rock. You're gonna fall.
I've been to a few spots this year, not too many for just to visit the nature, but the wildflower diversity here is by far the highest that I've seen. There's so much going on here. It is overstimulating, because in my mind I'm trying to remember the names of all these new ones that you sent. Just the ones that I know is wow. Everybody's here. We've got some asters over there. That new guy there. We've got those dandelions, the chia, the phacelia, the mallows. It's overwhelming. Oh, fiddleneck and everybody's just so happy right now.
Everybody's putting on a show.
Beautiful spring.
This was actually the first place that I hiked with Lara.
Oh, sentimental.
Yep, Christmas 2014.
That's awesome.
That was about the time that local neighbors who meant well were trying to clean the graffiti off of the rocks. And they just went out there and did it without consulting with anybody.
We probably got a lot more off of the rocks then.
Yeah. Yeah, side blotched.
Side blotch babe.
Yep.
I've seen a few whiptail babies too.
Nice. The most uncommon thing I've seen here in the reptile world is a rosy boa. It was closer to the spring.
I love Rosie. I cannot wait to go herping again. I feel like I missed out on the whole year last year. Because we typically, my little friend group, we go out to on a loop, Oregon Pipe, Arizona, Chiricahuas,
nice.
and go look for different things. I still have not seen a Gila monster, but we're usually out all spring and a lot of the summer, dark nights, looking for reptiles, just to marvel at them, get them out of the road, keep them away from poachers. We've had a few of those interactions. Also getting caught with the fake snakes that the Fish and Wildlife will be out. Here's my license. I'm not collecting, don't worry. But I could collect, but I don't. I'm trying to get some bird singers, so we'll have a camping space, private, bring some bird songs back to the Mojave.
Nice.
Which I'm also determined to do, because we don't have a lot of, at least not that I've seen, a lot of cultural activities up here, not the same way that we do down on the lower valley. But I don't know if that has a lot to do with the demographics out here, but it could be, or could be just a consequence of that kind of concentration of staying on the reservation, which is a bummer. But I think the more and more we do those types of activities, especially within ILC, the more welcome and at ease everybody will be in these old spaces that are our spaces. One of my goals is to make us more visibly out there in all the different agencies. There's a clamor for us now, yes, but I don't know. I still feel alone sometimes, or not alone, because I know my homie Sienna and I, but we want more. More!
Yep.
Those Indigenous people doing that work, it's not an easy thing
Yeah.
to join up with these organizations, and that's something I've faced a lot of in my short career. The amount of distrust that my community can have toward a lot of these different organizations that I've worked for, because number one, I have my mortgage and I have everything else to take care of. And number two, it's important that we wedge ourselves in there.
Yep.
I think that the clamor, sometimes it can be overzealous, but that need for those organizations to now be pursuing us is a kind of the direct consequence of us being in there and saying, look, you need to get Indigenous perspective. You need to do like over and over again throughout so many years, and now finally it's starting to happen.
Well, that's going to be it for this episode, Season 2, Episode 8 of 90 Miles from Needles. We'd like to thank Elizabeth Page for her time and sitting out there with us on a beautiful Saturday morning. We would also like to thank our most recent supporters. They are Daniel Southard, Shelby Logue, Nick McElroy, Cindy Bernard, Eric Stamper, Gretchen Grunt, and Zoe Dagan. If you want to join the ranks, you can text NEEDLES to 53555, or you can go to 90milesfromneedles.com/donate to find a bunch of different ways you can help us out. I also want to thank the following listeners and supporters for agreeing to join our new board of directors. They are Lucas Basolta, Caroline Partamian, Eileen Lynch, Brooke Binkowski, Stacy Villalobos, and Matthew Crotty. We have high hopes for continuing this year, and it is gonna be fun. Coming up are episodes on poaching of reptiles, on the potentially disastrous Cadiz water mining project, and on any number of other things. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time around.